Benvenuto, a member of the Audit Committee of the Board of Directors for Housing Development Partners, or HDP. It is 11:02 on September 1st, 2022, and this special meeting of the HDP Audit Committee is called to order. The process we're using for today's meeting is authorized by Government Code Section 54953E, which was added by Assembly Bill 361. This allows the use of teleconferencing and provides the public with an opportunity to address the committee through a call-in or internet-based option during a proclaimed state of emergency. The San Diego City Council on August 2nd, 2022 declared that a state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of members to meet safely in person. The council also declared that this applies to all boards, commissions, and committees of the City of San Diego. So this meeting is occurring by video conference with all committee members, staff, and general counsel participating by video. For the record, I'll ask my fellow committee member to indicate your presence when I say your name. Gary Gramling.
Present.
Hey, Gary. No members of the public are in attendance. However, members of the public may watch today's meeting, which is being streamed live online. The agenda for today's HDP Audit Committee meeting included a link to the HDP webpage on the San Diego Housing Commission's website. The public can access the live streaming for today's meeting on that webpage. The public has been provided with an alternative opportunity to provide comments to the committee through an online comment form and a toll-free phone number. A link to the online comment form was included on the agenda for today's meeting, which is posted on Housing Development Partners website, www.hdpartners.org, on August 25th, 2022. The agenda and the public comment form explain that written comments about items on the agenda will be read into the record if they were submitted by 4 p.m. yesterday, August 31st, 2022. Written non-agenda public comments submitted by 8 o'clock this morning will be read into the record. In addition, members of the public who wish to speak on an item may call the toll-free phone number that is included on the agenda. Members of the public should monitor the meeting through the live streaming available through HDP's webpage on the Housing Commission's website at www.sdhc.org. Under the About Us menu, select Housing Development Partners to access this webpage. Again, today's agenda also includes a link to the webpage where the public can access the live streaming for today's meeting. Members of the public should call the toll-free phone number only when the item they wish to comment on is introduced. If a caller begins to comment on an item that is different from the item currently being considered, they will be asked to hang up and call back into the meeting at the appropriate time. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to provide their comments. However, if a large number of callers wish to speak on a single item, comments may be limited to 1 minute each. We'll start today's meeting with non-agenda public comments. The phone line is now open to provide non-agenda public comments to the HDP Audit Committee. You can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. We'll keep the line open for at least 90 seconds to allow time for members of the public to call in. Again, that's 833-610-2513. I'll ask Scott Marshall, who's monitoring the phone queue, to let us know when that time has passed if we have any callers. This is a time when members of the public may provide comments on topics that are not on today's agenda but involve a subject within the area of responsibility for the HDP Audit Committee. The committee cannot take action on non-agenda public comments. No written non-agenda public comments were submitted for today's meeting. Scott, do we have any callers?
We do not have any callers. We have about 50 seconds left on the clock.
Great, thanks.
That ends the time and there are no callers.
Thank you. Next, we'll move into board member comments. Do any committee members wish to make any comments this morning?
I'll make one. And I listened carefully as you were giving the introductory comments, and I know that this Zoom meeting is approved for our youth, but I'm looking forward to the day when we go back to an actual in-person meeting. And I'm not really sure that there's any longer a reason not to.
Noted. Thank you. I'm sure that we'll be getting an updated bit of guidance on what the state of emergency is soon.
Yeah, I think we're going to have COVID around for at least as long as I live, and hopefully that's another 20 or 30 years. So I hate to think that we have to have Zoom meetings all through that time frame.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the June 29th, 2021 HDP Audit Committee meeting. The phone line is now open for public comments about the minutes. Please call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. We'll keep the line open for 90 seconds to allow time for members of the public to call in. No written public comments were submitted regarding the minutes. Again, the number to call is 833-610-2513. Scott, do we have any callers?
We do not have any callers. We have about 1 minute and 10 seconds left. The time has ended and there are no callers.
Thank you. This concludes the public comment period for the minutes. I was not a member of the audit committee last year and did not participate in the June 29th, 2021 meeting, so I'll abstain on this item. Committee member Grambling, do you have any edits to the minutes or do you vote to approve the minutes?
I have no changes to make and I move approval.
Thank you. The June 29th, 2021 minutes are approved by a vote of 1-0 with 1 abstention. We'll go into our discussion agenda now. The PowerPoint presentation was emailed to the committee members yesterday and is also posted on HDP's website. Agenda item 100 is the approval of HDP's fiscal year 2021 consolidated financial statements. The phone line is now open for public comments about item 100. Please call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. There were no written public comments submitted regarding this item. However, that number again is 833-610-2513. We'll take any public comments after the staff presentation, which will come from Executive Vice President of Business Administration, Suket Dayal. Suket, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Commissioner Benvenuto, Commissioner Grambling. Good morning. My name is Suket Dayal, Chief Financial Officer for the Housing Development Partners. I'm here with Julie Conserva, our Director of Real Estate Finance. We're also joined with our auditors from Team Cohn-Resnick, Amadou Bokar, Partner, and Jackie Tang, Senior Manager. We will present the Housing Development Partners consolidated financial statements for the year ending December 2021. Next slide, please. So we'll start with a quick agency presentation and then hand it over to our auditors. Housing Development Partners presentation will go over the audit timeline and the consolidated financial results. Next slide, please. The audit period calendar is year 2021. We have a very great partnership with Cohn-Resnick, who are the auditors for this period. Pleased to report the audit opinion as unmodified, which they'll provide more details on later on. The consolidation does include the 23 entities that are listed on this slide. Next slide, please. Did want to take a quick minute to share the comprehensive timeline for the audit and the tax return process. Typically, we start in September with our interim or mid-year audit. Then by January, we start the year-end audits and tax returns for the lower tier partnerships, starting with tax credits and regulatory partnerships first. By May, we're working on the upper tier entity audits, tax returns and annual distributions. And then we work on the consolidated reporting entity of Housing Development Partners, which consolidates all the entities under our control, thereby eliminating any intra-entity transactions. These actions bring us to the audit committee by August or September for request for approval. And I'll pass it on to Julie for the financial results summary. Julie? Julie, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So good morning. So this is a summary of our financial results. Total revenues of 18.9 million, total expenses of 20.6 million. Total capital assets were 139 million. Total assets, 172 million. Entities consolidated at 23, as Suket mentioned. And total units managed was just over 1,700. Next slide, please. This is a pie graph of our assets and liabilities. Of the 172 million in total assets, 81% are capital assets at 139 million, and 10% are cash and investments at 18 million. The remaining 9% makes up the rest of the asset classes, which is accounts receivable, restricted reserves and deposits, and prepaid ground leases. Liabilities and net assets of 172 million were 75% notes payable at about 129 million and 13% unrestricted assets, net assets, excuse me. Next slide, please. So this slide reflects the changes in assets, liabilities, and net assets year over year from 2020 to 2021. Assets increased by 11.6 million year over year, liabilities by 9.9 million year over year, and net assets by 1.7 million. The increases can be attributed primarily to the ongoing rehabilitation at Mariners Village and drawdowns from the associated construction loan liability. Next slide. This slide shows revenue, expense, and net income for 2021, while the net loss for the year was 1.7 million. Net income before non-cash expenses was positive 3.1 million. Next slide. This slide depicts the year-over-year change in revenue expenses. Revenue increased by 9% due to a retroactive rent increase received from HUD for San Diego Square, as well as from the stabilization of Mariners Village and Quality and Properties. Expenses remain stable with an increase of just over 2%. Next slide. And with that, I'll pass it to Cohen Resnick. They'll provide a short summary of their opinion, and then we can go to any questions or comments after that.
Hey, thank you, Julie. For everybody, my name is Amadou Alenchar-Bokar, and I'm the audit partner Cohen Resnick for the HDP audit engagement. And I'm here with Jackie Tang, who is the audit senior manager for the engagement. And we've both been working on the engagement, at least for the prior years as well, so in terms of consistency. And I can pass to Jackie. He can just summarize briefly the audit. We try to keep the presentation more summarized, just because the management did the financial numbers presentation. But if the members of the board have any questions or comments for us, we are here kind of to answer those. Thank you, Jackie.
Yeah, that's perfect. Hey, thanks for that introduction, Amadou. My name is Jackie Tang, audit senior manager here at Cohen Resnick, and then Suket and Julie, thanks for that snapshot of the financials for HDP. If you go to the next slide, please. I think the biggest thing is we just want to cover the audit results here. Suket did mention that that's an unmodified opinion. That's just fancy accounting talk for that's a clean opinion. So the entity and the draft that's provided here includes, this is fairly stated within US GAAP and all reporting requirements of HDP. There are a few items that we are required as CPAs to communicate for the board members. The first being that there's no material weakness or significant deficiencies in internal controls or financial reporting in itself. I actually don't even think we booked an adjustment this year for the team. So kudos to the finance team on that. And then just one minor item here, there's no adoption of significant or new accounting policies. So what you're seeing year over year is comparable, if you will. And then one last point is we really enjoyed working with the management team, Suket and Julie's team. They really do a great job of kind of handing over the reins and giving us complete packages as we prep for our audit here. And then last point, we're just here for any questions if the board or public has any questions for us on the CPA side. Thanks, everyone.
This is Gary Brandlin, and thank you for that brief presentation, but I do have a couple of questions. I realize that our assets increased significantly, but that $1.7 million loss, what do we attribute that to?
So generally the losses, because we have primarily real estate, the depreciation on the assets is significant, and that's what you're seeing, that big loss. So that's why we kind of break it out on that one slide. It's about 4.7 million, but it's just a paper loss. We obviously paid for those, the assets with development sources, so it's not coming out of operation. So it's not really an operational loss. That money's been spent, and we have that money. So that's why it's important to pull out the depreciation. It's just our gap, amortizing the asset over the life of the asset, which is 27.5 years.
Okay. Second question, going through and looking at the audit, I noticed that we've got a cash position right now of $18 million. At least if we look at page 8 of the audit, it's $18 million. If we go to page 15 of the audit, mentions a cash balance at this time of $29 million, and in cash or cash equivalents. And I'm just wondering, why are we maintaining such a high balance?
So generally this is like the consolidated entity, and it means any partnership or entity we have control over, which it's a control from a financial perspective, but we still have our limited partners that really have a 99.9% equity ownership. And we have those cash waterfalls that are structured per deal. So you're seeing it at a point in time before we've done our annual distributions. So, and if you look at the supplementary schedules in the back, it will show you by entity how much cash is in each entity. And you see HDP corporate, for example, has just 7.6 million. So that's really our owned cash. All the other ones are attributed to primarily to assets that we are not the equity ownership in. We get a piece of the pie at the end of the year via deferred developer fees or seller note payments, but we just get a small distribution from that cash flow. And every year we distribute from the projects, and we pretty much get their operating cash to zero. So what you're seeing is kind of mostly that's either, and it also includes some of our restricted deposits for our replacement reserves. Actually, I don't know if it does include that, but a lot of that cash is really not unrestricted, and it's not for the use of the corporate entity, HDP.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gramling. Do we have any public comments? I neglected to check on that. Scott?
We don't have any callers on this item. Thank you.
Okay, well, that concludes the public comment period for item 100. Thank you, everybody. I just wanted to thank the staff for being so collaborative, and clearly if the auditors have nice things to say about you, I think that's probably pretty indicative of a productive working relationship. I do not have anything to add. However, we do need a motion. I'm happy to make the motion on the item is it accept or approve the audit? What would be the?
I can make the motion. I will move to approve the consolidated financial statement.
Thank you. I will second that. And we'll go ahead and call the vote. Committee member Gramling?
Yes.
I will also vote in favor. That passes 2-0. Thank you, everybody. That concludes today's meeting. We are adjourned.
No, we still have item 2 on there. Which,
sorry about that. I think we've learned that you should not anoint me as the runner of the meeting. 1 second. I'm using. No, we do not want. We'll move on to item. Oh, wait 1 second.
Item 2.
Yeah, we'll move on to item number 2. I'll turn it over to staff.
Sorry, can I clarify just for everyone? Under item 100 on the agenda, there were 2 action items.
Thank you. Sorry.
I believe that Mr. Gramling is referring to the second action item to authorize the Executive Vice President and CFO to engage CohnReznick to do the 2022 audit. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you very much for the clarification. Committee member Gramling, would you like to make a motion to that end, or is there a presentation or anything additional that folks need to provide? Okay.
There's no additional presentation.
And this, do not take this question as a threat of any kind, but just a curiosity. I know that we have worked with Cone Resnick for a long, long time. I'm wondering, how many years have we been with you? Or have you been with us?
Amadou, do you want to, I know on the HDP side, it's less than the Housing Commission side. Amadou, do you want to speak to both of those?
I mean, on HDP, I could say maybe it should be maybe 4 years. Don't get me,
Yeah,
but I can get
about
back
that.
to you. Yeah.
Mhm. And approximately for the Housing Commission itself?
Oh, the Housing Commission itself, I mean, it's around 18 years or more. I would, yeah, if I would guess.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought we added you after I came on the board, and that was in 2009.
Oh, I can tell you the brief story of our timing, because just what I have a vivid memory quick. Basically, there were some issues in the public at the city. I remember that. So the city couldn't get their audit done. They had problems with their bonds, and the city auditors were thrown because of issues. So it was a big, and that's going back to the 2003 audit. And that's happened in 2004, 2005. And I think that's when the Housing Commission, when there were issues using the city auditors, that's when they went out for bid. And we came in to do to audit 2004. I think in that's kind of when the first time. And I think the city made us to go back to the audit some years. So that's kind of why I'm saying, yeah, so that kind of give you the, yeah. I always say that when people ask, I mean, for it's very good the board to ask, we've been here. I tell them that, yeah, we've been here for some time. We do have a lot of, we do have changes in our site. We do have a lot of our quality control in the firm looking at it at national level with a lot of people change. So it's not like the same folks who get your thing. And I tell people that I had almost 7 CFOs. So there were a lot of changes as well. It's not like dealing with the same people on the commission side. So there's kind of a lot of changes in the overall people actually doing the work, looking at our exchanging things.
Okay, so thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I will move approving the Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer to engage Cone Resnick for next year's, or for this year's audit as well.
Great, thank you. And I will second that. So we'll go ahead and call that vote. Committee Member Gramling?
Yes.
I'll add my vote in favor. Motion passes 2-0. Thank you. I'm now looking at the agenda. I'm feeling pretty confident that we are at the end of the agenda and we will adjourn now. Thank you, everybody.
Before you do,
Committee member?
yeah, I want to destroy your confidence. I'd like to ask one more question.
Please.
And that is, and it just caught me as I was going through the materials today. Why do we hold Hotel Churchill, Park West, and Mariners Village and for-profit companies as opposed to nonprofit companies?
Irene, I think Irene's on. She could probably speak to that. The C Corp entities, are you talking about?
Yeah.
I know that's the new structure required for disaffiliation for the tax credit deals. Irene can probably speak to that much better than I can, but it's a required structure from the limited partner to have it in a non-pass-through entity. It has to be a taxable entity.
Yeah, no, if there is that's correct. If it's a tax credit deal, and that makes sense, it has to be a taxpayer entity to generate tax credits. So that's true. Yeah, for all those entities where the tax partner who come in, the entity, the partnership has to be taxable partnership. This way, the losses, the book losses that Julie was referring to above in terms of depreciation and those sub the interest, those losses actually get flow to the tax credit investor who get to claim those losses in their own tax returns. As opposed to, let's say, the other entities that HDP owns trade that are not tax credit deals. Yeah, those ones don't need to because they fall to the nonprofit. Then it which is not a taxable entity, so it wouldn't matter.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Great question. Anything else? No? Okay. It is 11:27 and we are good to adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thanks.
thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yep. Mhm.